Karen's obsession with control had escalated to a shocking new level. This time, she attempted to block our move to a new cabin, claiming that her HOA rules somehow gave her the authority to dictate when and how we could access our property. Early one morning, she arrived with her usual arrogance, standing in the driveway with a clipboard, shouting threats about fines, community enforcement, and imaginary legal consequences. She clearly expected us to cower and delay our move. What she didn't anticipate was how completely unprepared she was for the response she would trigger. I calmly stepped out of the truck, assessing her position. The path to the cabin was clear, yet Karen planted herself directly in the way, demanding we halt our vehicle and threatening to call the police. My grandfather, standing beside me, calmly reminded her that she had no authority over private property and that any attempt to interfere could constitute trespassing and harassment. She waved her papers furiously, insisting that HOA rules allowed her to block our access, but her confidence began to falter. Knowing her history of escalating situations, I discreetly contacted local law enforcement and federal contacts to alert them to the potential for harassment. Within minutes, patrol vehicles arrived, lights off but presence unmistakable. Karen's face went pale the moment she realized that her threats would not go unchallenged. Her plan to intimidate us into halting our move had completely backfired. Karen attempted to escalate verbally, shouting at the officers that she had authority to enforce HOA rules and demanding that we stop moving in. The officers calmly reviewed the property deeds, legal documents, and affidavits, confirming that the property was fully under our ownership and that her claims were completely invalid. They informed her that any attempt to block or interfere with our move would result in legal consequences, including potential arrest. Not willing to concede, Karen tried to physically obstruct the vehicles, stepping into the driveway and waving her arms. My cousins, all trained in tactical operations, subtly positioned themselves nearby, ensuring that Karen could not interfere without being stopped safely and legally. My wife, a federal officer, stood by to document the situation and provide authoritative guidance to the responding officers. Karen, realizing she had no way to escalate without severe consequences, hesitated, her usual confidence completely gone. As the moving trucks advanced, Karen attempted a final bluff. She claimed that neighbors would support her enforcement of rules. But the neighbors, aware of her long history of harassment and false claims, refused to intervene. Some even stepped forward to affirm our ownership and document the interaction. Karen's smirk disappeared entirely, replaced by panic as she realized that every step of her plan had been anticipated, countered, and neutralized. Within minutes, the vehicles were safely on the property, and the cabin move continued without further obstruction. Karen, humiliated and powerless, had no option but to retreat. Her attempt to enforce imaginary rules through intimidation had failed, and her pattern of harassment was fully documented by both the police and federal authorities. She had underestimated the combination of preparation, legal authority, tactical planning, and family unity, and it had cost her credibility, influence, and dignity. This confrontation marked another pivotal moment in the ongoing saga. Karen's obsession with control had once again met a boundary she could not cross. Her attempts to manipulate law enforcement, intimidate neighbors, and enforce fictitious HOA rules were dismantled through careful preparation, strategic positioning, and the backing of legitimate authority. By the end of the day, our cabin was fully occupied, the property secured, and Karen's reputation in the community further diminished. She had crossed another line, and once again, our family's preparation, unity, and authority had ensured that her overreach would be met with swift and decisive consequences. Karen had learned a painful lesson. When audacity meets law, strategy, and preparation, her power was meaningless.